we can just have a chat. So here we go. Welcome to Knife Talk. Knife Talk together. We've got a bunch of us in a Zoom room, and we're going to have a chat. So the idea is we put our normal shows out on a Monday, and the whole idea of this is, I mean, times are different for us all. As a lot of us are working from home or we're at home for some reason. So I thought, let's just do a show where a bunch of listeners can be on the show too. So we're calling it Knife Talk together. And I've got a few themes that I'd like to sort of bring up. And hopefully between it, you know, if technology doesn't fail us, hopefully we'll be able to get through this. But bear with me because there's going to be a few things that I'm not quite used to. So let's start with a question, basically.
Hey, man, can I ask you a question?
So the burning question really is, I think, for all of us, and I'm just going to do a quick introduction for everybody here so I can see Brian House from Housework is here, Ryan Reed is here, Robinson Knives, Sean Moolenbelt, Toma Botner from Florentine Knives, Brad Lindo, Knife Material is here, Matt Coutts, Josh Weston, and Josh from Edge Knife Works. And we've also got Dustin Young and Raw Blades, but they're a little bit too scared to put their cameras on for some reason. They probably rolled out of bed and they thought, we got no work today, their hair's a mess. They probably thought, let's just go with it. So let's start with the first question that I've really been sort of pondering over the last couple of days.
Hey, man, can I ask you a question?
Which is, how are our business going to cope with the change of things? With this current pandemic, things are going to change. We're not going to see maybe the orders that we've had. And I don't know about all of you guys, the type of work that you do, but I mean, I'll speak for myself to begin with. Most of my customers are restaurants, and restaurants simply, they've closed. They're not making any money at the moment. The chances of them ordering at the moment are very, very slim. So I've been wondering how I'm going to be getting business over the next 6 months, maybe up to a year. Who knows how long this is going to last? So I'll just point out a few people and let's just find out, you know, what your work is, who your customer is, and what your initial thoughts are. So in my top left, I've got Brian House. Let's start with you, Brian. Who is your normal customer, and how do you see yourself sort of weathering this storm, really?
Well, you know, as some of you may know, that I do a lot of content creation. So my push really isn't to sell blades so much as it is to create content around formulating blades or making art or whatever it might be that I'm doing, metalworking and that kind of thing. My primary business is technology. It's how I make my day living. And that's tanked. I mean, it's gone. But I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years. And so I've seen these massive swings. In 2007 and 2008, we experienced almost this exact same thing. And it lasted for about 5 years. That was a baptism by fire, as I like to say. So what I did was I made myself very valuable. I started to invest in myself. I learned new skills. And then, you know, I kind of dropped my prices a lot to just meet the requirements where I could just start selling stuff. And that seemed to work out pretty good for me. You know, I just made myself valuable. I put myself out there. And yeah, that seemed to help.
Yeah, I mean, as a content creator for you, I'd imagine times are pretty golden for you. If you forget everything else with regards to work, people are looking for content at the moment. So yeah, I'd imagine that's going to work pretty well for you.
Yeah, what we're seeing now is enormous swings in my analytics. People are watching. You know, they've got a lot of free time. So what I'm trying to do is obviously provide some value to them. You know, and then also, you know, just speak to what's going on in my own life and that kind of thing. And I think, you know, from the feedback that I've gotten, it really, it's comforting to my audience. You know, they're hearing me say, you know, this is going to be okay. You know, take some time. And in my last video, I touched a nerve when I said to my audience was, you know, this is now the time if you're thinking about making a change. No one is going to judge you. If you don't like your life and you want to shift and you want to change something, right now is the time to do it. Pick up, invest in yourself, start learning new skills. If you thought about you want to go full-time with knives or content creation, whatever it is, now is the time to do it.
Yeah. And I think now's a good time to start forming good habits too. We're forced into living a life which is not our normal life. And I think if we start with some good habits, you know, we've got a good chance they could stick, because who knows how long this is going to last.
Day drinking is a great habit to start doing.
It's 8 p.m. here. I'm fine. It's 8 p.m. It's all good. Mareko's here. How are you, Mareko?
I'm doing all right. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Good.
You hear me all right?
Yes, we do. I was just kicking off with a question really about how people are wondering how they're going to sort of weather this storm, because I mean, for me, and I think for you as well, a lot of your customers are maybe restaurants or, you know, chefs who may be out of work, who basically aren't spending money at the moment. So
Right.
just trying to think, you know, how people are going to weather this, any sort of strategies people might have. I mean, I've been speaking a lot about this with my wife. She's a lot cleverer than me. So we've come up with a few things. So I've got basically a mailing list of restaurants that I've sort of corresponded with over the last few years. There's a few hundred restaurants now. So one of the things that we've done is it's actually going out tomorrow. We're sending an email to all of the restaurants saying maybe now is a good time, and as horrible as it sounds, you know, now may be a good time to sort of think about designs, and now you've got the downtime to get stuff done that you wouldn't normally do. So what we're proposing is, if anybody wants to put an order in with us, we're going to defer payment until 1 month after they open. So it gives me, hopefully it'll give me time, it'll give me work, which I can get on with. Yeah, it's one of those things, maybe not, it won't work for everybody, because, you know, some people may need the money immediately. But I'm quite fortunate that my wife works full time too. So that's what one of the strategies I'm going to do is offer the service as I normally would, not reducing price in any way, offering exactly the same service I would, but yeah, deferring that payment for until a month after they reopen, and who knows when that'll be. So you know that's one thing we've been thinking, and I'm just wondering whether anybody's got any sort of strategies that they've got which maybe will help them through this. So let's go to who's next on my list, because I think my grid, who I see, is probably different to what you guys see. So I've got Robinson Knives next on mine. So just tell us, you know, what kind of knives you make, who your customers are, and how you think you may be able to weather the storm, really.
So I make mainly kitchen and knives. I've been doing a lot more chef knives, trying to focus on handles. I don't sell a ton already. I'm still in high school, so having school canceled is nice. I have a lot of time to work in the shop, and the shop that I work in is on my property. So I have a lot of time in there, which is really nice. So I'm just gonna kind of plug in and work really hard and work on improving my fit and finish, and work on like blade geometry and testing. I'm still getting orders about the same consistency I was before, because most of the people ordering are home chefs, or family friends, or family members who hunt a lot, ordering skinning knives and stuff like that. And now they have more time to sit on their phones and look at my products and stuff. So I don't think I'll have a downturn in orders. And if I do, that's okay, because I'm not relying, this is my source of income right now.
Yeah. I was reading something the other day where somebody was saying in times like this, where there may be sort of financial struggles for businesses, the businesses that do have the money are more likely to spend on sort of high-end quality goods. And what, you know, how true that is, we don't know. Let's see how it plays out. But yeah, let's hope so for all our sakes. Jeez. Let's go to Sean Muhlenbelt, 51 Bravo.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts? Who are your customer, and how are you going to sort of weather this storm?
It's been a strange thing for me. I am a builder, remodeler, and I try to do both simultaneously. As I get orders, I kind of space out my construction work. So then the governor of Michigan shut us down. We're not allowed to go out, which I wouldn't anyway, because I think that's a socially responsible thing to do. But all of a sudden, maybe 2 days ago, in the past, I have made these carving knives for decoy carving community. I've got a lot of friends who are hunters, and one of the guys is like an 8-time world champion carver. He went online and did a live carving demo, and 2 days later, I think I've got 80 knives to make, something like that. So I haven't made a carving knife in a year, and now I'm up to my ears in them. So I guess there's a lot of guys sitting at home like us, looking at the phone, trying to find different things to keep them occupied. And luckily these have been it for me. So yeah, I'm busy for weeks on end.
Wow.
So
we're 3 guests in, and it's all good news so far. So Brian's gonna have a lot more business. Robinson Knives, you got the time to sort of hunker down and master the craft a bit more. And Sean, you're getting orders in. So it's not all bad news. It's not all bad news. That's good.
no, and I have a sugar mama as well that's inside working from home. So I'm good.
Join the club.
Right.
Toma, you're next on the list for me in my grid here. So I know with you've been on lockdown a lot longer than a lot of the guys that are in America there.
Yeah, we've been home since 13th of March. So I think that's about 22 days now, or something like that. And yeah, the business, well, I assume, I don't know everyone on the chat, but my business is a bit different than everyone else, and we are more focused on quantity. We make a lot of knives. We make a lot of table knives for restaurants, like big orders. So it could be 100, 200, 300 knives. And we also do a lot of chef knives and paring knives online. I can tell you that I'm not super optimistic. I think it's going to take a while for cooks who are my primary customers to have money again and to have jobs again. I figure it's around 18 months minimum until things go back to kind of normal. And I've seen a decline in our orders March, we did first half of March was fine, but the month ended like maybe 30% under our lowest month ever. So it was pretty bad month. And it's still trickling, but it's hard to work like that, I have to say. Me and my wife, we have 3 employees, and my wife work together. And it's just I live above the shop, so I go down and put in a half day's work, and then I swap with Noah, my wife, and she works the second half of the day while each of us take care of our child. And it's a downer. I mean, it's just for me, it's really depressing to work alone in the shop and everything's closed. And I'm a little bit not panicking, and for me, it's a bit too soon to say what will happen. So I'm kind of trying to think about all the different options that I could plan for. And when I feel like we're heading in some kind of direction, and we do have some idea about timelines and what's happening, I could. But I'm like open to everything from maybe everything as big as moving to changing the way the business works. I'm just trying to think about all different options to keep going.
I think, like Brian said, I think a lot of people are going to come out of this with a different sort of strategy for their business, because a lot of people it's going to knock them crazy, knock them sideways. But yeah, I feel for you, man. Having employees as well. Is the Spanish government helping with employees and with regards to salaries, that kind of thing?
Well, I think like in most places, independent, like I own the business and I get nothing. In most places, if you have a contract, like if you're an employee of someone, then you can get unemployment, get furloughed, and that's what I had to do with my employees until we get back. And one of my employees who's not on a contract, I keep paying them because they have to live.
Yeah.
And the government won't give you anything. And I'm pretty disappointed with the reaction of the Spanish government so far. It's been slow, and like every day there's a little bit like a new law or something. And I'm looking around in France where you are, Craig, and I think they give you a lot of peace of mind there, at least compared to what I'm feeling here. And I watch the news a lot. I see what's going on in the U.S. Here we have it pretty hard also because Spain is in a pretty bad situation. in terms of the disease itself and the way the hospitals are coping. But honestly, I'm looking at my friends in the U.S. and I fear for them the most right now.
Yeah.
I feel it's going to hit hard, and I hope it's not as bad as I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I feel you completely. Yeah.
I just want to mention that a majority of the good things that have come from into my life have been a result of adversity. And I think that is something to really remember when you're in that deep, dark place where you start thinking your mind starts going. It's never as bad as you think it's going to get, and it's usually not as good as it's ever going to get either. But adversity is one of those things that helps us really find our true character. And a lot of artists talk about that, finding that piece of darkness and sometimes lightness that will draw out really good things. So I'm with you. I just want you to know I feel you.
Appreciate it.
Next on my grid here is Ryan Reed.
Yep.
So if you can explain, what you make, who your customer is, and again, how, what your plans are really for the future.
Yeah, so mostly I'm a hobbyist knife maker and blacksmith, but I specialize in Damascus patterns, mostly mosaic Damascus. Lately I've been playing with patterns, so my customers are knife makers and tool makers. But again, it's all a hobby for me, so I'm not dependent on it. My primary job is considered essential, so I go to work every day as of now. We'll see how long that.
Yeah. I think for most people, everything is at the moment because things are changing so quickly. But yeah, yeah. As an essential worker, yeah. Thank you for putting yourself at risk and getting out there and doing whatever you do.
Yep.
But Mareko, let's go straight to Mareko, and we all know what Mareko does. Mareko makes these fantastic chef knives. Have you got any plans, Mareko? I know you've got a wait list of years to come. You're one of the fortunate ones, but is this going to affect you? And going forward, are you making any changes at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it's definitely going to affect me. It's already affecting everybody, and I've already started kind of mentally preparing myself. For the worst case scenario, that could be like me being a door-to-door knife sharpener, all the way to, I do have that backlog, which I'm very for now. I have struggled going back and forth about whether it's a blessing or whether it's a curse. And right now, I feel very thankful for it because, especially as the economy here in the United States is already going into a recession, people are going to be tightening down their belt buckles and protecting their wallets a little closer. And so I've already started kind of, like I said, talking about mentally preparing myself, expecting that people are going to they're going to reach out to me and say, I can't do this right now. And, and everything that we're going to do in accordance, in response to that and preparing, just kind of mentally preparing ourselves and getting things together with emails and how we're going to respond with people. When I say we, I'm referring to my wife, who helps me definitely on the administrative side of everything that we do. As Brian was saying earlier, this is while it's really hard, there's also an opportunity for growth and innovation. And as makers of things and creative people, I think we are at an advantage to figure out how to adapt and how to innovate in these times, these times of hardship. And realistically, there's no going back to what used to be normal. There's going to be a new normal, and so what is that going to look like, and trying to anticipate what that's going to look like, not alone just in the world but in our market as well, and how do we adjust to that. And I listened to, I've mentioned this before on the podcast several times, I listened to a guy named Vaynerchuk, and I've been listening to some of his content recently, and one of his things that he's talking about is, everybody's, a lot of people are on lockdown, and this is our chance to, as makers of things, of products, and things like we sell the things we make. This is our chance to kind of take a step back and kind of tell our stories, because not only are people buying our products, but they're also buying us. And so this is our great opportunity where a lot more people than normal would be seeing you talk about who you are, where you came from, how you got, what got you into knives, what kind of knives you make, why do you make those styles, what is your thought process, and everything that goes into it. I think, and also to show your process, show and share your process, which, and all of that branding helps with, and storytelling helps with just building trust with people, so that when they ultimately decide to make that choice to buy, they feel good about it. And so I think that's definitely something for folks to kind of, and I've been kind of trying to think about myself. But yeah, going forward, I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to work through my current backlog and just stay focused on manufacturing and turning those out and adjusting as things change. And I was stressing out pretty bad when all of this really started hitting hard, but realized ultimately there's not a lot to do, but to keep moving forward as best as I can. And as if I start working through the list and I get to somebody who says, I'm sorry, I can't do this right now, or maybe, like, who knows where they're at financially. Maybe because I take deposits, maybe they need that money back. Again, we're preparing to how we're going to respond to that and how we're going to help those people out.
I've had one of those myself. I've had a restaurant do the same thing, saying, things are going to get difficult for us. And they were sort of next on my list, and they've asked, could we not go proceed? And you got to say yes, I suppose, haven't you? There's not much you can do in that situation. But
right.
I spent most of the morning today dealing with a purchase that was made at one of my events at the end of February, and I think these people are just out of money, so they said to their bank, we had no knowledge of that. So I have to go through the documentation. My bank account is now on hold during this dispute thing. And I don't care if they would have just contacted me or something, but it's like, I have to go through this whole thing. I spent 4.5 hours today. We're looking through paperwork to prove to the bank that these people made this purchase from me, which is super frustrating because I have kids. So I'm like, so now I'm picking up, trying to work and teach. Well, 4 of them are school age, so I'm a teacher and a maker and working a job at the same time. And it's like, this is the last thing I need, is to have to chase around. But
I think a lot of people are struggling with that. The fact that they normally have their set work time, but now they may have children in the house as well. And they're doing that, juggling a bunch of other things at once. And I think a lot of people are not used to sort of maybe being with their spouses 24/7 as well. I've spoken to a few people and they're just like, oh, geez, they're climbing the walls. But it's a difficult one. But coming back to something Mareko just said about, there's always the option of going door-to-door sharpening. Maybe not door-to-door at the moment. Let's wait for quarantine to lift a bit. But that's something, again, me and my wife were talking about, offering just like a sharpening service for restaurants, where they could just, drop knives off here and we'd sharpen, for free. And just, use that almost as like a marketing thing, really, just to sort of, get into, make this connection with restaurants, and hopefully when we come out to the other side, that you're first on their mind when it comes to having cutlery, but it's a difficult, it really is difficult. Let's have a look. We are 25 minutes in, and there's actually a 40-minute limit on Zoom, because I'm too cheap to pay for the pro version. So after 40 minutes, it's going to kick us out. So I want to get to as much as we can. So we've been through a few people. Is there anybody else here which we haven't spoken to of maybe got ideas of how they're going to get through this? Of any sort of plans which you think could be of value to anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in, if you don't mind. I had just started and shifted my business to a new model where we go around to Ren fairs and we teach and we charge knife forging lessons. We don't call them lessons, we call them experiences because it's not really a full class.
Because you can charge more for the experience
like,
than you can for a lesson. I know.
Right. Yes, it's a micro experience. Yeah. Which is very cool. But in the process of doing that, I had slowed down my maker, my personal line so much that it was basically dedicating most of my time to that. So when this hit, public events gone, and we had an equivalency of 6.5 full-time employees. Well, there is, for anyone who does have people that, in the States at least, that does have employees, there is a small business loan going out now. You need to get on it right away. It just released on Friday. All your lending institutions, your banks, and see what they can do. But essentially, they will pay for a certain amount of months of your pay. And as long as you use 75-ish% of this loan on payroll, you don't have to pay it back. Okay, so that covers and 1099s as well. So contract employees, got an apprentice that comes by, 1099 that motherfucker and file and get some money from the government to help get you and these people through. So
Nice. Good advice,
that is one thing I had to do. We have a guy that's actually stuck in Arizona, which was where our last show was. We just got cut off midweek, and we hadn't quite making enough at that show to get everyone everywhere. So he's just staying with some friends he made at this point. And my trailer and all my shit's out with him too. All of my inventory is stuck in a locked up trailer in Arizona.
Oh, jeez.
Starting from scratch, it's 3 nights. But if you can, take advantage of that because it's built for small businesses and people in situations like us.
Cool. Matt, you've got something to say. You're on mute at the moment, Matt. There we go.
I'm off now.
There we go.
I think we know that people's incomes are going down and they're not going to be able to afford our products that we sell. A lot of us sell pretty pricey products. I think finding a way not to kind of put the proverbial cold spoon on Craig's gooch or anything like that, but
hey, leave my gooch alone.
But I think how Craig had the idea of kind of laser cutting or water cutting some smaller paring knives that he could sell for cheaper is a good idea for all of us. You know, maybe if we don't do kitchen knives, maybe kind of rip out some EDCs really quick, something that we can charge people maybe a little bit less for the time being, instead of doing like a Bowie or a big chef's knife or a medieval sword or something like that we know people are able to afford now, to try and focus our efforts more on smaller things, some carving knives like Sean did, or something that we know that we can rip out for $100 or less, and something that people can afford. I think people want to support local businesses, but I don't think people can $500, $700 support local businesses right now. But maybe they can $100 support a local business. And if we can rip out a quick paring knife or a small EDC that we can sell for $100, maybe that can kind of spark our business a little bit. But either way, things have changed, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't change the way we do our business, if we just keep going the same,
yeah. And going back to you just mentioned about laser cutting, knives and getting them out quicker. One thing I've realized this, and not to sound like a crazy prepper, but I want to. It's just made me realize that I need to take more control over my product, because at the moment, 100% of what I do, I'm getting laser cutter or water jet cut out anyway to start with. And what I'm finding is if I don't have those things, I can't go forward anymore. So yeah, almost like being like a prepper, I need to think, I need to be able to do everything in-house now, you know? So I'm looking at, you know, maybe getting like a plasma cutter in and being able to, you know, stop outsourcing stuff. Because at the moment the postal system is completely shot. But you know, it's not just the postal system, it's the fact that everybody else is in the same situation as me. They're on lockdown. So yeah, that's something that I've been thinking that, you know, if I didn't have to rely on others, this would make this a little bit easier for me. So that, you know, that's something, and I don't know about you guys, whether you go down that route as well. I know one or two of you do here. You know, that may be something where it sounds silly saying needing to spend in this situation, but by spending, you're sort of safeguarding yourself in the future, and you're safeguarding your future business. But yeah, that's
Yeah, and
something.
I know here in the U.S., the government's going to send out some stimulus checks, and you know, think really hard for those of us who are going to get those stimulus checks on what we want to spend it on. You know, if it's something that can improve our business. I mean, obviously, if you need it for food and you need it for, you know, to support your family, you know, that comes priority numero uno. But another thing is, you know, a lot of us, knives may be our side hustle, but get a side hustle. You know, if knives aren't working out, you don't want to give up the dream. You know, Brian does his multimedia and videos and stuff. You know, I, you know, help out with recipe planning for restaurants, and I work in finance, and you know, I some Tomer's neck of the woods that needs some financial analysis, and so I out to him, and you know, start getting those side hustles.
Yeah. So Matt, sorry, did I hear you say you write recipes for restaurants?
So I have a buddy of mine who has a donut shop. And he does apple cider donuts, and so he's got food trucks, and he's got a brick and mortar, and his brick and mortar, they experimental stuff than his food trucks do. So we come up with a bunch of different recipes. You know, they're coated in cinnamon. You know, we'll like cold smoke some sugar and do like a smoked donut and call them little smokies, or
nice.
You know, stuff like that. But you know, now I don't know how much money is going to be coming from that cash cow, since the restaurant business is hit hard. But
I was just thinking, when you said that you do recipes for restaurants, I was thinking,
hey, you know what you should do?
You should send Fader a proper bolognese recipe, because his is bullshit. Bullshit, I tell you.
Hey, man, all right, Jeff. Can I ask you a question?
Let's move on with another question. So the next one I've got is how our community is obviously facing big challenges at the moment, whether it's the knife making community or our local community. And really, how can we help people, whether it's people in our street, people, you know, pensioners in our locality, or whether it's other knife makers, because there's going to be other people who are less fortunate than you. No matter what situation you're in, there's going to be others far less fortunate than you. And I'm just wondering, if we've got time on our hands, what we can be doing. And I know Jeff's not here now, but I know Jeff puts in a lot of hours trying to help out local restaurants and that kind of thing. And just coming back to, you know, we chatted about with Mareko on the show last week. I'm in the same situation as Mareko. The local restaurant scene here, I'm not part of at all. You know, first of all, I don't speak their language, but I'm not part of the local restaurant scene. And restaurants being my customers, my first thought is I need to try and maybe help them out, and not see it as an opportunity for the business, but you know, reach out and maybe make these connections, which who knows in the future may spin back around and create business. But I'm just wondering whether anybody's got anything that they've been doing or any ideas that they've got which could maybe help out, as I say, whether it's their restaurant community, whether it's their hunting community, if you do hunting knives, or whether it's just the lady next door. You know, what can we do to help more? Because I think a lot of us have time on our hands at the moment, and if we can help, that's great. Anybody got anything?
So yeah, here in Florida, a lot of the restaurants are shut down. They can only do takeout at this point. So what my family's been doing is like for Easter dinner, we're going to order Easter dinner from a local restaurant. The local diner down the way, her local business, just went to nothing. And what she started doing was using her distributors to help people who couldn't get groceries. So, we were buying groceries through her. So we went from big box store and, and shift our focus to the local person.
Yeah, I think that's something we can all do, really, isn't it? As long as things are remaining open. I mean, here in France, everything is shut. There's the only option we've got to feed ourselves are a couple of sort of designated supermarkets we can get to. But yeah, I think if people can do that, they can help serve local businesses. I'm sure they're going to be massively appreciative of it. Yeah, good one.
Hey, Craig, I did something this morning. I had been doing just some instructional videos on little projects and stuff, but I thought, that's fun as a distraction, but what is a more immediate need? So I went on Facebook. There's a bunch of local community chatter, your local community informed, that type of thing. And I just put out there that if anybody's got a group of people or has a need, let me know. Maybe I can help do something. And already my local church was doing a food drive that I didn't know about. So I'm going to try to help with that. And then the local old age home, they needed like some platforms to raise some beds. I'm not sure for what reason, but they needed them built. So I sent them an email based on what someone said in that forum, just to tell me of a need. So as a builder, it's not going to be a big deal for me to build a platform or whatever they need over there, but just kind of throwing it out there, because other than masks and, hand sanitizer or going to a restaurant or ordering takeaway or whatever, I wanted to know what else is out there. And so I just asked. Yeah.
And I think that's important, not just for what you're doing, but I think for yourself, because I think if we're finding we've got time on our hands, I had a few days where I just literally did nothing, and it was just driving me completely crazy, and I just think we all need to, feel as if we're doing something, that whether we're supporting our family or we're supporting somebody else. Otherwise, we're going to bed and not having done anything, for a lot of the day. And it can, it's going to screw with your mental health and all sorts. And I just think we all need to try and keep busy. So, yeah, I think that the primary thing really is keep your business going. If you can keep working for your business and keep your owning, look after yourself first. But if you're finding you have got time, and rather than just sit and watch Netflix for unless it's Tiger King, I think that's quite important.
Unless it's Tiger King.
Unless it's Tiger King. But once you've done Tiger King, you've got time to do other stuff. So going back to sort of PPE, so I've got a 3D printer here, so I've been printing some, face masks for the local hospital and things like that. And it's not much, but the way I think of it is it's just putting me in a better state of mind. It will help a tiny bit, but it's helping me a lot. And if we can all come up with some sort of strategy to do that, I think it's going to be good for us all.
I just had an interesting idea.
Sure.
So my grinder, I can actually throw my grinder on the back of my pickup truck, and I could drive it somewhere and plug it in, because it just takes a 110 plug-in, and I can sharpen anywhere. And I just had this thought of like being able to do kind of a sharpening drive in a way where, a lot more people are cooking at home right now. And a lot of them, I guarantee almost everybody needs their knives sharpened. And so something that as a maker or somebody with the ability, especially if you are good with sharpening off the machine, or even if you got stones and that's what you're more comfortable with, coordinate with a restaurant and say, look, I know a lot more people are out there cooking at home. I want to help you. I want to sharpen your knives, just to help make that experience less of a chore for you. and one, it really helps with people in the community. It helps raise awareness of who you are and what you do. But I mean, more than anything, like you're taking the time out of your day, out of what other stuff you could be doing to help others. And I think, if you even just spent like 3 or 4 hours doing that, and people kind of coming through, kind of like a pop-up car wash or something. You see kids do fundraisers with car washes and stuff. Instead of doing that, you're setting up with a restaurant and you're offering to Sharpen. And I guarantee you could actually probably pop around to different restaurants, because not everybody's going to be able to come to just that one, or the timing is not going to work right just for that one day or that one time. But if you do it in several different locations, you could possibly give back and help in that way. Actually, I think I might try to do that myself.
That's a good idea.
Mareko, if you're going to do it like a
Nope, I think you froze.
Yeah, sorry, Matt, you froze there. Yeah.
Maybe set up outside like a food market type of deal as well, because that's where everybody's going to shop.
Right. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Because people aren't necessarily going to restaurants, so they wouldn't necessarily know that's going on. But if they're outside their, local mart, food mart, they notice a lot sooner.
I can see Toma looking at the camera thinking, that's not going to happen. So here in Europe, things are very different. We literally, well, in France, I can't leave the house unless I've got paperwork telling me I'm allowed to leave the house and stuff. So, but, whilst you can obviously do, yeah. But here in Europe, things are very, very different. And I don't know, Toma, maybe people could, they're allowed to exercise for an hour a day. Is that right in Spain?
No, not really.
Oh, right.
Everything. You can't go anywhere unless it's to the hospital or to do shopping. You have to have a note with you saying where you're going and the time you left.
That's what we have. Yes, yeah.
And I hate to say it, but you guys are maybe a couple of weeks behind us.
Yeah.
Now you're going to be doing a week or two.
I'm surprised we're not there yet.
You should be. I'm sure you should be. It's going to be a while, and I think the best thing we can do, really, it's a cliche, but I just try not to catch anything and not to give anything, like not to have anyone get infected with me. I leave the house once a week to go shopping, and I got my 3M mask and everything, and everybody thinks I'm a weirdo, but I do it, and I'm not ashamed. And I just come back, go, because my neighborhood has a lot of old people, and I offer to do shopping for them and everything, but for now everybody gets by. But like minimize the contact you have with other people, and this will go over faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you wear your cape when you go out, Toma?
My cape. Yeah, always my cape.
I'm just wondering if you wore your cape. That's all. Okay, well, there's 15 of us here. So,
hey, man, can I ask you a question?
Does anybody have any questions? We've got a couple of guys here who are specialized in Damascus. We've got a couple of us who do sort of production runs. We've got a content creator. We've got lots of knowledge here. We've got a material maker, as in handle materials as well. We've got lots of knowledge here, sort of in the room. Does anybody have any questions that maybe? Yeah, John, Robinson Knives, you got a question?
So I've been trying to work on my edge geometry and grinding distal tapers into my chef knives. But one thing that happens is when I'm grinding at an angle to get a taper into the blade, right here, about 1.5 inches from my heel, this part gets thinner faster than this part does. And I just want to know how to avoid that, because then when I sharpen, there's a slight curve in this, and I have to go back and resharpen this part by hand on the stones.
I can see Mareko nodding very enthusiastically there. Go for it, Mareko.
Yeah, so my guess is when you're approaching your 2x72 inch and you're hitting that area and you're grinding, not only are you getting all the way up to the heel of your knife, but the other side of your belt, the platen, is also hitting that spot about 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the heel.
Yeah.
And so you want to try to just be a little mindful of kind of focusing more pressure at that heel when you're getting down in that area, and if you got to do it edge up just to help like visually monitor what's going on, then I would do it. Maybe you do grind edge up.
Yeah, I grind edge up.
Yeah, so it's just kind of keeping that in mind, because I used to get that all the time, and I was like, what the fuck's happening? And then I was like, and then it finally flashed on me. I was like, oh, the platen is 2 inches wide. When I'm grinding over here, I'm actually also kind of grinding over here at the same time. So yeah, I would just trying to be more attentive to that.
Okay. I also noticed too on my belts, if I have overhang on one side, that side is going to get a little bit of a deeper gouge where the belt is overhanging the platen. And if you're not completely flat against the platen and you're just slightly tilted, you're going to take more material off the side where the overhang is.
What I find a lot of people do as well. So let's say that's the platen and this is your knife and you're going, oh, it's not picking that up, is it? Let me turn this off. It's ridiculous.
Camouflage.
Yeah, let me turn that off. There we go. So let's say that's the platen and this is the blade and you're going sort of across and you're doing back and forth actions. And what you need to think is those areas are getting twice as much as that middle area because you're going back and forth. You're only hitting that part once, you're hitting that part twice, that part once, that part twice. So you're naturally going to have that middle part sort of being ground less than your two ends, if you like, because you're not going back and forth. So just something to consider as well when you know the actual how much abrasive your part of your blade is hitting, because that middle bit is going to be hitting less if you're going back and forth.
That makes sense. Yeah.
What do I know?
Hey man, can I ask you a question?
Sorry, Joshua from Edge Knife Works had something to say. Sorry.
You're good. I've never used Zoom before, so is the audio coming through all right?
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. Just one thing on that. I know, like the grinder that I used to use was it's a 2x42 inch grinder, and with those, what you find a lot of times is the platen is very thin, and if you're doing a lot of grinding, it can warp in very weird directions. So maybe check your platen too and make sure that you don't have almost like a dip or a hollow in the middle of your platen. So where you think you're actually grinding flat, you're really digging in on your off corner, if that makes sense. I've kind of been using this time to really work on learning hollow grinds and adding that into something that I do in my kind of normal production. And one thing that I found really helped me was putting just 2 layers of electrical tape on my contact wheel. So my contact wheel is actually very slightly crowned in the middle. And so instead of that off or back side even contacting the blade, I'm only working on the half of the contact wheel where I'm trying to apply pressure, if that makes sense. It's something odd. I don't know if a lot of other people do that, but the first couple hollow grinds I tried with just what was a flat or maybe slightly dipped wheel, I found that edge was grinding in and giving me the same effect. The middle was grinding out really thin in certain spots and was very hard to keep even, versus when I added that tape and added a very slight crown, or even if it's just checking, making sure your platen is flat. If you're using a steel platen, maybe now would be a good time to do a shop project and put a ceramic or glass platen on, and really take some time to kind of tune in your grinder. But that might be something that could help if you're getting kind of uneven grinding spots.
Cool. I'm liking this format. We get multiple answers to one question. It's cool.
Hey, man, can I ask you a question?
Anybody else got a question at all? No.
Yeah, so I have a question for you guys that do a lot of big production runs. I don't have, I'll only have like 10 or so knives to make at a time, but I find it hard to do more than 3 or 4 at a time because I get stuck, or I'll get in one process, or I'll have a couple ready to heat treat and a couple ready, working on handles, and I just get distracted. Is there a better? What do you guys do to keep that steady flow?
I mean, I do sort of production runs, sort of 100, 200, that kind of thing. What I tend to do is if it's a new design that I've never done before, I'll do one from beginning to end, just one knife. And that way I know that if there's anything tricky that, I'm not doing, the shaping of 200 knives and realizing that's wrong. So I make sure I've got one completely finished to the standard that I want. And I make notes along the way. And then I got checklist. I do that step, that step, that step, that step. But I do actually enjoy that sort of flow, whether it's I've got 2 weeks of grinding and I'm grinding that same bevel for 2 weeks. I quite enjoy that. And I quite enjoy, I'm drilling holes in the tang, that kind of thing. That kind of thing I enjoy. And I think it is just about getting a flow. And one thing that I've always hated is setting up machines for something. And I think if you're doing, singular knives or maybe 3, 4, or 5 knives, you're always going to be, your setup time is going to be huge for each knife if you break it down. But I find, if I do that one knife from beginning to end, and it won't always be right, so then I'll start again, and until I'm very happy with that beginning to end process and everything's written down, I won't start like a batch of knives. But I think just get into the flow. I just put up music on or a podcast, and I can have 2 days of drilling holes, for example, which sounds boring as hell. But I think if I quite like seeing a big pile of knives come down and down and down. They start on my right and they go to my left, and the bits on the left are done for that process. I quite enjoy that bit, and maybe it's a mindset thing. I don't know, but get that one knife done perfectly how you want it. And as long as you've written down every process, you could be confident moving on each time that every knife is, identical and it's all going to go well. Sorry, Josh.
So I would be on the opposite spectrum, or not opposite spectrum of you, Craig, but I do my batches differently because I can't attention span the same thing in those large numbers for that amount of time. So what I do is I set myself on a time limit schedule. So I'll go out and I will know, and I stopwatch everything, which also I track my stuff to Excel documents. So I know how long it takes me to grind this and that and the other thing. And you guys have talked about some of this stuff before on the podcast. But if you are doing batches, I do recommend you keep an Excel sheet for all the steps and include your time and your materials to know how much stuff is costing you. But when you force yourself onto a schedule like that, so I'll go, okay, I have an hour to do grinding. And so I know that I need to have, if it's small knives, these 10 small knives get ground in an hour. And then I do this process and then I set them aside. And then I go do the creative shit that I like to do, because as in a more artisan style, I like that part of the process. So I have to touch something more organically creative when I go out into my shop and do stuff, or after 3 days, I get really irritable. So I'll chunk out my morning for this, and then I'll move to my afternoon for whatever next started the creative process. If I'm cleaning scale off, I get to a point where, okay, I'm going to let this sit in vinegar for a day, and then it sits in vinegar while I do the next process, and then it's easier for me to do scale cleanup, and I move on to the next one. And you just got to find those idiosyncrasies and those natural break points processes for those knives. And then by the end of the week, you probably have 50 knives done and ready to heat treat. And then maybe Friday's your special heat treat day. And then by 5 o'clock, you're drinking beers and getting ready to do the next part of the prep the next week with handles and stuff. So I also swim around because South Carolina's hot and humid. So I try to do as much hot work in the morning and then cool work in the afternoon. I can close things off and do handles and maybe the other that's air.
Yeah, down here in Florida, I have to do the same thing. All the heat, forge work in the morning or, in the evenings, and then, handles in the middle of the afternoon in the shop.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh. Josh, go for it.
You're good. Something that I find, because I work in batches of 10 to 20 knives at a time, and I much prefer the forging aspect over grinding. So what I tend to do, because I do both everyday carry knives and culinary knives, and most of my everyday carry knives are forged and most of my culinary knives are stock removal. So what I will do is I don't start a process until I know I'm in the right mindset to finish that step. So I don't want to, because what I've found is that if I start grinding like 3 or 4 knives and then I get, I don't know if I'm really in a mood to do this today, and I set it aside, then I'm less likely to finish up the rest of those 6 because I kind of have a bad mental note connotated with, the whole event. But what I like to do is if I say like, okay, I don't feel like grinding this morning, either work on, usually I have 2 batches going at the same time, a batch of everyday carry knives and a batch of culinary knives. And so if I don't feel like I want to start a step on one batch, switch over to the other. And usually they're in different stages, so it gives me a nice break. If, like the culinary knives, I absolutely hate cutting them out with an angle grinder. But unfortunately, it's just where my shop is at the moment. It's a messy process, and I'd pay anybody, whatever they ask, to come into my shop and cut out 10 or 20 knives with an angle grinder before I do it myself. But so what I'll do is either try to do something first thing in the morning to put myself in a better mental state. If that means I forge out a bottle opener, or I, work on an art piece that I've got going on for 2-3 months at a time, where I'll do one step, set it aside, and maybe I come back to it in 3 or 4 weeks, or, switch off to another batch and work through a process that I know I can start it and complete it in one sitting, and not, set it off to the side and forget about it. Now I know, like for Craig, if you're doing batches of 100 or 200, it's a little different because you've got, one process that, like you said, you're doing for 2 weeks. So it's a little bit different, but in those small batches, like 10, 20 knives, I find it's easy enough to switch between the two. Or, even if it's something like tricking yourself into a better mood by giving yourself 30 minutes in the morning to do some fun forging or whatever process you like the most before you start on the thing that you're not wanting to do.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, we're all going to have processes that we hate doing. Is one part of the process. You think, oh man, I'm not looking forward to this. So how do we all sort of get through that? Do we face that? Do we just think, let's just get on with it and then we can move on to something more fun? Or I'm the worst for it. I'll just think, and I'll put it in the back burner, and I'll find another job to do, which is far less important, but it's a bit more fun to do. Yeah, I suppose it's all about attitude, isn't it? And what you're going to do. But yeah, well, look, time is getting on, and we're over 40 minutes, and they haven't kicked us out yet. So I thought they would after 40 minutes. So shall
Craig,
we?
I got a notification. I got a notification that said they removed the time limit for this video. I don't know.
Okay.
It popped up on the screen about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe so. Okay. So shall we? I should be wearing a gold now because it's quiz time. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work because there's so many people involved. This is going to be like a school quiz. If you know the answer, first one to put their hand up in the air. Okay, I can see you.
I think there's a hand up thing on the app.
Okay. Is that really? Let's have a look.
Yeah.
I think some people maybe
upper right-hand corner it says raise hand.
I think some people may be using phones. I'm not sure if it's the same if you're on a phone or if you're on a laptop. I'm not sure.
I'm on iPad.
Yeah, I'm on a phone and I don't see the grid.
So
there's more.
On my phone, I hit more in the bottom corner. You get raise hand.
Okay, have we all got that raise hand option?
I do. I see that now.
I actually don't see it. I suggested it.
Okay. Okay. Another thing we could do, if you know the answer, cover your screen quickly. And if it goes black, you're the person. Okay? First person to cover their screen. So, are we ready? Eyes down. You don't need that again. We've got 15 questions. They're split up into food and drink, general knowledge, and then we've got 2 knife questions to finish. Because coming up with 15 knife questions is very fucking hard. I've got to say, so hard. Food and drink. Are we ready? Eyes down. What is the most famous Mexican beer? Brad Lindo. I think you were first. Brad.
I believe it's Modelo.
You're wrong. You're wrong. Let's do Thomas straight in. Thomas in with the next one.
Corona?
Corona, correct. It's a topical question. What is the name? I'm glad that Jeff isn't here for this one. What is the name of the pan in which one makes paella? Nobody. The answer is paella, because Spanish for pan is paella. Who'd have thought? From which cactus is tequila made? Toma.
Agave.
Correct. Toma's killing 2-0. 2-0. He's the only one with points. Okay, we all know this answer, so this is a case of first one in. What is Japanese sake made from? Sake. Brian House, I think.
Rice.
It is rice, Brian. Okay, 1 point. This is the last of the food and drink questions. This isn't going too well. This whole putting your hand up quick. We need to be quicker. What nuts are used in marzipan? Who's down there in the bottom? Let's have a look. Bottom left. I can't see the name. Oh, I can't see because there's a bubble over there.
I think it's Matt.
Matt Coates.
Almonds.
Almonds, correct. 1 point to Matt. So that's the end of the food and drink round. General knowledge is next. Here we go. We've all in with a chance here. At the moment, Toma's on 2, Brian's on 1, and Matt is on 1. General knowledge. Some people are going to have an advantage here. What is the national animal of Canada? Matt was straight in there.
Beaver.
It's the North American beaver. Well done. 2 for Matt. Here we go. What bird can swim but cannot fly? Mareko.
Penguin.
Correct. 1 for Mareko.
Glad
Okay.
I got that one.
Toma on 2, Matt on 2, Brian on 1, Mareko on 1. Where are we? Okay, I think a few of you will know this. How many stars feature on the flag of New Zealand? Toma.
I think it's 3.
Sorry, how many? No, you lose a point. You lose a point. You go back down to 1 point.
Oh, wow, you can lose them.
Anybody else? Anybody else? How many stars on the flag of New Zealand? Nobody. The answer is 4. The answer is 4. So Matt is in the lead so far with 2 points.
Thanks, Tomer.
In which European city can you find the home of Anne Frank?
Oh, shit, never mind.
Mareko, straight in.
I think I screwed up. Paris. I don't know.
No, Mareko goes down to 0. Anybody else? Go. Toma's back. Toma's desperate to win this. Jeez.
I'm Jewish.
Amsterdam, correct. Back up to 2. Okay. The last question in general knowledge. Who was the original author of Dracula?
No.
Josh Weston.
Oh shit. I was. Is it Bram Stoker?
You're correct. You're correct.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Oh, I thought we were going to go down to -1 for somebody then, but you got it. You're right.
Sweet.
Okay, we got 2 questions. These are knife questions now, and to be honest, anybody can win this because, well, Toma's on 2. If he gets one wrong, he goes down to 1. Brian is on 1. Matt is on 2. Mareko's on 1, and Josh is on 1. Josh Weston. We got a couple of Joshes here. Josh Weston's on 1. Knife questions. First one is. Who did Mareko interview in today's Knife Talk? Charlie Ellis is there. Charlie Ellis has gone for it.
That'd be Will Manning from Heartwood Forge.
Correct. Charlie Ellis wins a point. Will Manning from Heartwood Forge. And that was a monster. That was 2.5 hours, Mareko. Wowzers.
Flew by.
It was a really good episode. I liked it. We've got one last question, and we're going to determine a winner from this question, I'm sure, Rhett. Again, it's for Knife Talk listeners. How old is Jeff's mum? Dustin Young. Dustin Young was straight in.
75.
No, you're -1. Dustin's on -1. 5 for. Oh, we got 2. We got Robinson. I'm going to go with Robinson Knives next.
79, because he said she's turning 80, right?
You're wrong. -1 for Robinson Knives. -1. And who we got left? Sean Moolenbelt.
80.
80. He's correct. Sean's on 1. Okay, so
it's cheap, but I'll take it.
She was 80, I think, on the weekend, but yeah, who knows? So we've got Toma and Matt Coates on 2 points each. So we need a
sudden death.
Sudden death. I've got no more questions.
Sudden death.
Who's got a good question for Toma and Matt? Hands up, as if you're in school.
Can I offer a question?
Go for it. Okay. We're waiting. Have you got a question, or are you going to Google a question?
No, because if I offer a question, then I would know the answer right away.
But you're not in the running. We only got 2 people. We've only got 2 people who can win this, which is Toma and Matt.
That's Matt.
That's Matt.
Oh, Matt is saying it. Sorry, I thought this was. Sorry, there's a delay. Sorry. No, Matt, you can't. You cheat. No, you can't. You definitely can't. I'm going to Google a question, and we're going to find a question here now. So let's have a look.
Let's do it.
It's rock, paper, scissors for the end.
Yeah, bear with me just a second. Just going to Google a question a second. Okay, we went for art and culture.
Oh, jeez.
Are we ready for this?
I'm ready.
In which city did Romeo and Juliet live? Toma's in. Verona. We have a winner, ladies and gentlemen. Toma is the winner of the first Knife Talk Together quiz. Look, I think that's it. I think this was a success. It worked. It was nice to have a conversation with people who were in similar situations to me and to the rest of us as well. And hopefully some of us got some ideas of how we can sort of approach things going forward. I think that's it. Has anybody got any questions? And again, we've got a lot of sort of experts sort of in the room in their individual fields. Anybody got any further questions before we say bye-bye?
No, it's been fun.
Good stuff.
Yeah, just thank you very much for including us.
Oh, no problem. I think a weekly, whilst we're all in lockdown, doing this weekly could be quite fun. And I think, well, I mean, we're on 15 people now. We had about 45 to 50 people wanted to be on, but I thought for the first one, let's keep it low, and it seems to have worked. So people aren't talking over each other. But thank you all. Again, any questions? Send them to Knife Talk or Knife Talk Podcast on Instagram. And we'll answer them on the next show. I think we've got another show coming up in the week before next Monday's, another single track. If it was up to Jeff, he'd record himself every day speaking for about 7 hours, just going slowly crazier and crazier. But we're trying to keep things down a bit. So, yeah, we'll have another show in the week, and we shall speak to you all on Monday. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Be safe.
Thank you very much.
Yes.